as well as anything stated on the meeting will be recorded and posted publicly on the G Drive.
Thank you, Corey. Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Lindsay Westmiller. I will be co-chairing the meeting today with Brian, who will be newly elected co-chair. And just as a reminder, as Corey had mentioned, the meeting is being recorded. It can be used internally for review of the meeting, including our discussion and comments. We have engaged live captioning services for the meeting, so if that would be helpful for you, you can turn those on by clicking the More button and turning on the captions. And with that, I hereby call the Advisory Council meeting to order today, February 27th. Looks like we're at 1:07 p.m. And just as a reminder, the meeting is open to the public, so I want to welcome all the council members here and any returning guests. And we will start with going through our intros for council members. So we will kind of tap off. I'll start. My name again, Lindsay Westmiller. Work with the Area Agency on Aging. Black hair, got like a red shirt on. She, her pronouns, and again, role on the council as a voting member. And I will pass to Brian to go next.
Hello, Brian B, as in be who you are. I am an autistic artist, advocate, and I work at JFK Partners at the School of Medicine with Colorado University, and I'm the newly elected co-chair. I'm zooming in with my camera on today on this beautiful snowy day. It's nice to have winter during wintertime. Imagine that. Yeah, I'm a middle-aged white guy, have a beard now that's got some white hair in it, and I'm from home. So there's a home background with plants and so on. Pass.
So we can go to Chris next.
Say hello, Chris. Say hello.
Hi, Chris.
Chris says hello. Chris Patton, you want me to introduce a little bit about yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. So Chris is also autistic. He is nonverbal, so he speaks through letter cards and through typing software like iPads and things like that. Chris also, some interesting things that Chris does. He actually has a website where he sells clothing with poetry that he writes, that he has written and printed on his t-shirts. Chris also really loves music, likes to play instruments, likes chimes, and likes tattoos. So, and then I'm Hunter. I'm here with Chris. So yeah.
Thank you. And we can go next to Michelle.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dumais. I'm a voting member, and I am also serving as the CAC liaison. And so later on, I'll share some words from CAC, what happened. And I'm African American female, she, her, and always me are my pronouns. I am, when people say they're middle-aged, I'm like, how do you know? So if I go with I'm 54 and I want that to be actually like 1/3, that's what I'm going with. I want to see the other side of 100. So we can I'm going to float that out there, as Brian says. I am Muslim, which means I am wearing a blue scarf today, and I have on a black sweatshirt that says unjudge someone. And I'm zooming in from my house. And so I'm in my home office. It's got a light yellow background. And think that's it.
Thanks,
Do I get to
Michelle.
choose or do you
Thank-
choose, Lindsay?
Well, we've got Stephanie to go next.
Perfect. It's your choosing. Awesome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Gross. I am the founder of Move Through Yoga. We bring adaptive yoga to those with IDD, but also more importantly, we provide training and coaching for care team providers, agencies, day programs, anyone in education who wants to learn how to provide adaptive yoga to those with IDD. I am a white female. I am in my 40s. I'm in my home office and I am stoked to be here. I'm a voting council member, and I have to say, Brian, your beard is fabulous and keep up with it.
Thank you, Stephanie. And we can go back to Corey.
Hi, everyone. I am Corey Boyle. My pronouns are they, them. I work for Denver Human Services with the IDEAS team. I am a program administrator. I am also the secretary and therefore one of the non-voting members of the IDEAS Advisory Council. So you'll see and hear from me throughout the day. I am currently wearing a dark blue button-up with dark brown short hair, a pair of glasses, and some stubble, a Caucasian presenting person with some headphones and a grayish background. During introductions, I would like to just kind of remind folks to visually introduce themselves whenever they can during those introductions. We will just have the advisory council members introduce themselves today, and then anybody else who would like to introduce themselves can do so in our chat. And so I'll be the last to do this whole introduction. But then as we go through the rest of the meeting and we speak, I would invite people to briefly introduce themselves by saying hi and my name so that anybody who perhaps can't see the screen or see our faces on it knows who is speaking or responding to them. Thank you.
Okay, this is Lindsay. So now that we've gone through our intros, we can go ahead and, as per usual, start off with reviewing the meeting minutes from the January 16th meeting. And if any revisions need to be made, or if not, can get a motion to approve the minutes from January. Okay, so not hearing any revisions to be made, so I will leave that open if someone wants to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January.
This is Stephanie. I will make a motion to approve.
Yeah, I will second that. And then if everyone wants to type their vote in or all the voting members in the council, if you want to vote in the chat, yes or no, please. Okay, so it looks like 4 yes, 1 abstain. And with that, we've got the meeting minutes from January are approved. And so we can go next to our updates from council members and IDEA staff and partners. So we can start with if we've got an update from Michelle, our CAC liaison.
So this is Michelle. And I'm going to make the update really simple and then get with Corey to give the more factual information. So essentially with CAC, what happened was, if you remember when we had our last meeting, we had a community comment. And that comment was related to, it was a suggestion where a community member said, you know, our community members struggle so much with the completion of many processes in a timely manner. And they suggested that we have, I believe, DHS, possibly Rocky Mountain Human Services, to create a position in which that person would support our community members as they're completing applications for federal funding, for any support services that they felt would normally sort of time out, and that the member would have to restart the program, restart an application process. And what I learned from Kisley Blue is that we actually have that there is a position in which our community members can be supported. And so, Corey, at a later time, I'm going to give to you that information that Kisley passed on, that made mention of those supports that are already in place. So it was a great suggestion from the community member. And in fact, through a little bit of research, found out there are actually positions that there are actually entities inside of Rocky Mountain Human Services that do facilitate that. So I just need to get with Kisley so that, Corey, you can add that to the drive as a response to the community member's suggestion. And in fact, the meeting, from there, we took a lot of time looking at that community member suggestion, and then there was just a lot of response to it. So I'm happy to give that to Corey so that he can put that with it in our drive with that appropriate comment. During the meeting, we also continued to discuss, I presented that, you know, we had our newly elected folk, that I was continuing on as the CAC liaison. And then we did have some more discussions around the approval for Rocky Mountain to relook at requests for support around persons in the community when they do not own their home. So those home modifications that were being done in homes by community members that did not own the home. So we continue to have a little bit of discussion about that. That's it. And some other housekeeping was done inside of CAC, but essentially those were the things that I wanted to report back.
Thank you, Michelle, for that update. Do you have any updates from any other council members right now?
Yes. Hi, Lindsay. This is Stephanie. I wanted to share an update with you all about Move Through Yoga, and perhaps I'm seeking your advice. Feel free to message me directly in the chat or email me. I'll put my email in the chat as well for everyone. So as I mentioned before, my name is Stephanie Gross, and I'm the founder of Move Through Yoga. And we are really honored to have received a grant from HRCP. And I'm coming to you guys to ask for any direction or referrals. Perhaps Erica, I would like to speak with you. I just read your introduction. Ideally, we're looking to meet program managers of day programs, or PASAs, or special education teachers or district personnel in the Denver area. We're looking to provide our training services to that population who work with the IDD population. So the ultimate goal would to be able to provide access to adaptive yoga for those with IDD, but also to provide inclusive training. So yeah, and I oftentimes really like to. I see a lot of us off the camera, but I do want to say that whenever you go to a yoga studio, for example, and they say all levels, not everyone fits in that all levels category. And our goal is to really ensure that we're bringing adaptive methods to all minds and all bodies. And at the end of the day, one of the benefits is for the care team providers to also get this training, because they need that training. They need that self-care piece. So if anyone has any information or any contacts, I would greatly appreciate speaking with you.
And do we have any other dates from council members or IDEAS staff related to the council? If not, we can turn it back over to Corey to talk about the declarations of interest.
Hi, everyone. Corey speaking here. Thank you, Brian, for getting the slides. So yes, we're going to talk about the declarations of interest. Just a little before I get into that, I am going to just go over just very, very quickly some expectations for the rest of the meeting. We've gone through a little bit of our agenda already, but we'll revisit that on our, thank you, Brian, on our PowerPoint here throughout. So just real quickly, standard expectations for each meeting is that we are please be respectful of everyone attending the meeting. This means both people who are joining us from the public, members of the public speaking or listening in, as well as any council members, DHS staff, or anybody else. Please be nice, be respectful, be patient with each other. Mute yourself during the meeting, raise your hand to speak, and then unmute when you are given the floor to speak, and then introduce yourself as you're doing so, just to be clear and organized as we go through it. Please try to stay on topic, speak to whatever agenda item we are talking about. As I mentioned, we will revisit the agenda throughout the meeting. All of the meetings are public and recorded. We've already mentioned that. Chats are also posted publicly, and so this is a point that I always just want to make sure I hit every time. Please don't post any private or personal information in the chat or anything else that you wouldn't like to see in a public space. So this includes emails or phone numbers, anything like that. That chat will get onto our G Drive, which everybody is welcome to go and visit and look at for prior meetings. You can see the recordings, you can see the meeting minutes, all that good stuff to kind of know what we're talking about. And so with that, please don't put anything out there that you don't want other people to know. Votes will happen in the chat as they already have to approve the meeting minutes. Please remain safe during meetings. So if you do have to take this meeting while you are moving around or driving, please eyes on the road. You don't need to vote or talk while you're driving. If you can either pull off to participate or just wait to participate, you can always jump back on and come back to us later. I do a good job of monitoring participants who are in the waiting room to readmit people. And then last but not least, have fun. So make sure that as we do this, we do our best to keep things light and move forward in a fun way. With that being said, we'll get on to the declarations of interest, which are not exactly a fun topic, but it's something that we got to do every year. So if you'll please bear with me as we go through this, every council member is expected to sign and fill out this form that I have here on the PowerPoint every year. And I take those, I store those in our file system. It is important that we declare any possible conflicts of interest so that we know that we're being transparent, that we're not in any kind of way violating ethical codes, trying to steer money or career advancement towards ourselves with the decisions that we're making. The spirit of this council is to give a community voice and to ensure that the decisions that we're making with the IDEAS Special Revenue Fund are for the benefit of the community and not for any sole individual to do anything that might be improper. And so this is a way that we help do that. So we just fill out possible financial relationships that we have on this form. It's fairly straightforward. Like I said, it does need to be filled out every year. As Jordan has said in the chat here, they're very important. Managing conflicts of interest, both actual and perceived, is vital to the integrity of this council. I don't think I could have said that better than that. So please make sure that we fill these out. We get these back to me ASAP. I will store them. I store them yearly, and I track who has submitted them and who has not. And so for everybody that's not here, I'll make sure that I get with them individually and get those signed. And one thing too, I invite, so this form is very nice because Crystal before me did a very, very great job of putting on the second page of it, which isn't posted here, a good, nice, accessible description of conflicts of interest and ethical considerations and why this form is important. However, if anybody has more questions or needs help filling this out, please just reach out to me. You have my email. You can email me there or get to me on the phone, as some of you prefer to do, and I will gladly go over this with you, and we can talk about what we need to fill out for each of these if you have any questions. So please, let's get these. I'm making a request here to submit these to me by the end of the month, which is Thursday. So it's only a few days from now, but I have sent these out a little earlier. If you can't get it to me by Thursday, then I'm gonna come and talk to you. I'm gonna chase you down and try to get these as soon as you can, so that we have them on file. And like I said, these have to just be there every year. I want to just open up questions real quickly, and then we'll move on to the next agenda item.
Thank you, Corey. I heard you say get it to you yesterday. Will do.
Mrs. Lindsay, I just wanted to vocalize what Jordan's put in the chat. Just, part of the form, be sure to let us know what other groups you're participating in. Are they related to IDD work? Put everything on there. And also that these things wouldn't necessarily preclude you from participating in the council. And if there is a specific issue or a topic that we are discussing or voting on that could potentially be a conflict of interest, again, that's, Jordan's always been available for questions, and Corey, so, Michaela as well. So, we can talk about those, if there's something that comes up along the way, and you can, abstain from a vote or, ask your questions about that conflict as needed.
If I could make a suggestion, what happens on a lot of the boards I work with is just be up front when something comes up and you think there might be somebody who would consider something you're doing to be a conflict, whether you think it is or not. Just tell us. Just say, hey, I want to let everybody know X, Y, and Z. Does anybody have a problem with me participating in this discussion, voting on this issue? And we'll just talk about it. I mean, there's no reason to hide it under a bushel. Just put it out there. Most times people say, oh, no, that's no big deal. And we move on. But it's the spirit of transparency that's most important in this. So I'll get off my soapbox.
This is Corey talking. Thank you, Jordan, and thank you, Lindsay. That honestly, both of what you just said there is super, super helpful. Yes, we invite discussion. Please just let us know if you ever think, there might be any kind of something that could be deemed as a conflict of interest. You always have the opportunity to abstain from a vote, and we'll let you know when that might need to happen. And Otherwise, just because you have a certain financial relationship or something like that doesn't mean that you can't serve on this council. We know that everybody that's on this council is involved with the community in a lot of different ways, and so we expect there to be a lot of different relationships that y'all have and networks that you've built. So by all means, don't be afraid to just let us know what those are. We want to be as transparent as possible. We are a public entity. So Michaela, I saw that you had your hand up. Did you want to say something?
Sorry, Corey, thanks. This is Michaela speaking. Corey, you said it much more articulately than I could. I was just going to assure folks that we understand that this is a small community, and we anticipate that folks will likely be connected with different organizations that they would want to declare. So I wanted to assure folks that just because they're letting us know about a potential conflict of interest that may arise over the course of your service on this board doesn't mean that precludes you from participating.
Great. This is Corey speaking again. Thank you all so much. I don't see any more questions, so I think for right now, we can move on to the next agenda item. Just one last reminder, if you do have questions, just reach out to me and try to get those forms to me ASAP. Great, yes, and the next agenda item is scheduling. So again, more, I guess, not the most fun conversations right now, but we gotta get the rest of the meetings for the year on the books. One of the things that I want to just kind of reiterate for the council to know is that being that we are having public meetings, we have to have these publicly posted and therefore the public notified that we are meeting at least 48 hours beforehand. So this includes the date, the time, and the location. And so folks need to know that we're meeting on Zoom. Obviously, that's going to stay the same. And when. If we don't do that, then we had to move the meeting back because we're not in alignment with the code of ethics. And so with that being said, we've got a schedule out from March until November. That's the month before December, right? So that is that right now, Brian, if you wouldn't mind going, oh, you're on the right side. Thank you. Oh, could you go to the next slide, actually? Sorry. Is there a next slide? Yes. Great. So right now, I want to just open a space to let people kind of chime in and talk about their availability, but I'm hoping to kind of put in y'all's ears to consider keeping the final Tuesday of the month or the first Thursday of the month between 10 and 5. We can't do the final Thursday, so sorry that might be confusing. I forgot to update this slide. But anytime with this is like fully recommended. I know some of y'all have different schedules, being parents and workers in different places and stuff like that. So now's a great time to kind of vocalize that and to kind of give your thoughts on when we can convene and when you are available. However, I'd recommend still that final Tuesday, keep things consistent if we can from 1 to 3. And also keep in mind as we talk about this that if you're ever not able to make it, that's okay. We want to see you as many meetings as we can, but it's okay to miss 1 or 2 here and there. And then if a lot of people can't come, I can also reschedule them as long as I have that 48 hours notice. I would prefer more than that, but that's the minimum. So keep that in mind that as we schedule this out, if 1 to 3 works most months, but not one month, that's okay. Let's still keep it consistent. Does that sound good for everyone? Great. So I'll open the floor for council members now to kind of speak to their availability and what they would like to see before we kind of decide on our schedule.
This is Michelle. I like to throw out first that maybe we stick with what we have, which is the final Tuesday, 1 to 3, and see if we can just sort of start our discussions there.
This is Lindsay.
is Beth.
I would agree. Kind of that would be the starting point. And go ahead, Beth.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I like that idea too, the last Tuesday still, although I will still have to leave early because I have to pick up my son at 2:40 from school.
This is Brian. I've got my camera off. I'm doing screen sharing, and I just want to say, y'all just reminded me of a song that says, "If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just chill out, let it go." Pass.
Same thought I had. This is Michelle. I'd also like to suggest, again, this is Michelle. I'd also like to suggest that we forego the, and Brian, maybe you can help me with this. And I think we did it in our CAC meeting, that we forwent the July meeting. I believe it was July. I'd like to suggest that we not meet in July as well.
This is Corey speaking. I welcome that suggestion by all means. And so I would love for all of the council members to kind of weigh in on that. What I should have done at the start of this was also give everybody kind of a lowdown on some of the topics that we need to cover this year. And so this, Michelle, you bringing that up gave me a just reminded me to discuss that. So just real quickly, before anybody else kind of weighs in on that, I do want to just kind of go over general topics that we hope to kind of cover this year, so that you can kind of get a feel of how many meetings we probably should have before we kind of cut any out. So today's discussion will be on diversity and the identity of the IAC, with hopes that that will inform recruitment, which is currently ongoing, to make sure that I'm doing a good job of reaching out to the right folks. After this, we do want to discuss recommendations that we've previously made, priorities with our budget, things like that. We want to invite a few of our contract partners to come and present. So we have at least one of those that we probably will, we have two of those that we will schedule. So right now that we're at 3 meetings minimum, in addition to the 2 that we already had. We are also hoping to have a community providers get together at some point, have a little bit of an update for you on some other topics, and then also go through, oh, sorry, there's another presentation that we had to have too there. So 4 meetings minimally, plus 3 more in addition to that. I have trouble counting on my fingers, but that is 7 in addition to the 2 that we've already had. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, so 7 in addition to the 2 that we've had, making for a total of 8 this year. That's not to say though that we might not have more to add to that future agenda, I guess. So that would mean that cutting out July would be acceptable and fit within that. And also, as Jordan has informed us of last year, we can also schedule meetings as needed if anything ever comes up. So there's that too. Just wanted to put that out there as information that y'all should be privy to as you're discussing this and the potential of skipping July's meeting. I will stop talking now.
Thank you, Corey. This is Brian off screen, and I see in the chat that Chris P said, "I'm flexible, but prefer early Thursday." Passed.
This is Corey speaking. I would like to invite consideration for early Thursdays, if anybody has that. For us, that would likely be best if it was the first Thursday of the month. Does anybody have any opposition to Thursdays, or do they feel as if it would be better to still try to work on Tuesdays?
This is Beth. I wouldn't mind early Thursdays at all. My Thursday, I have my personal therapy in the afternoon, and that's basically all I have all day until the evening.
This is Brian, and as I'm looking at my work schedule, Corey, what would early Thursdays, what might a time frame be? 10 to noon?
Yeah, if we're keeping the 2-hour block, I would say that it would probably be a 10 to noon type deal. I wouldn't necessarily recommend too much earlier than 10, and honestly, that's a selfish reason. I need a little bit of time to kind of get things together technologically to get all this going. I know it probably doesn't seem like much, but I do need to do a lot. So 10 10 to noon, and I do see Jordan Humphreys confirming that that's okay with him, but 10 to noon on first Thursdays, I think would be the recommendation right now if you're looking for my guidance at all on this.
This is Brian, co-chair, and it would take me a while to get there, but I could get there. Pass.
This is Corey speaking. What do you mean by that, Brian? Would it take, like, would that be a difficult time for you?
I just mean that I'm currently scheduled on Thursday mornings for a while. So what did you say, the first Thursday of the month?
Yeah.
So that would be March 7th. So, no, for me. And then next one would be April 2nd or 4th. Yes, I could do it. And I also 10 to noon is definitely couldn't be sooner, and even starting at 10 is challenging for me, but yeah. I could make the shift. If that's how council decides. Pass.
Okay.
This is Lindsay. I think also we would want to hesitate to lock anything in when we've got Bree and Kaylee out.
This is true. And we'll
Any
say,
significant change. I mean, like going to a Thursday morning, they might not be able to do that at all.
yeah. So what I'll say is this, thank you, Lindsay. March 7th is actually coming up real soon. And I myself, while I think it's first Thursdays sound very enticing. I want to accommodate Chris, I want to accommodate Beth and everybody on the council. I don't think that I want to schedule something next week, as that would be quite yet. So what we could do is, note that we like first Thursdays here, keep March as final Tuesday, and I can put the schedule out that way and then talk with everybody that's not currently here outside of meeting, as I sometimes will try to do, to see when those work. That way, so what, all of that to say, let's plan on, and I'm going to open this up so that people can refute me if this is not going to work, but let's plan on end of March, final Tuesday of March being the next advisory council meeting, and then starting the convention of first Thursdays of the month that following week. And so we will come up against each other a little bit there, but I think this will give us time to work on that if we need to. And then going for final Thursdays of the month for the rest of the year. Does that sound, I mean, not final, first Thursdays of the month for the rest of the year. Does that sound doable at this time, knowing that we can fluctuate and change those if need be? Go ahead, Brian. I see Brian's hand up, and I also see Lindsay coming off chat. So go ahead.
Brian B, my recommendation is that we do not set forward to change and consider what Lindsay said about Kaylee, and I forget who the other one you said's not here, and instead put that to them at our next meeting, which gives all of us a full month to digest it and gives them a chance to input. But you can still reach out to them, Corey, to liaison between now and then. Pass.
Yes, because we're also hearing that this time does work for a number of people, the current time too. So I don't think that we want to overlook that either. It sounds like it would create new challenges for some. So I think we do need to take that into account as well, and not just make that leap to moving to a Thursday morning.
Okay. Thank you both. I appreciate that. I will. Sorry, I'm reading the chat there. I'll take that suggestion into consideration too. So what I'll do then, for now, unless anybody is greatly opposed to this, is I will schedule March meeting for final Tuesday of the month, and then hold off on scheduling later into the year until I've heard from the rest of the council. Does that sound acceptable to everyone? Okay, great. That sounds good.
I would think and if we can talk with them, at the next meeting just to get a sense, because I mean, that could be tricky, the Thursday morning, so.
Yeah, that's totally fair, and I do hear that. And what I'll do too is, just to kind of allow that same spirit, is I will take into consideration the skipping of July, and I'll let the council members who are not here know that that is also a consideration, and see how they feel about that as well, so that they can weigh in and determine if that is an acceptable process. Michelle, I see your, I don't know who was up first.
Michaela had hers up first.
Okay, Michaela, go ahead.
Thanks, everyone. This is Michaela speaking. One thing to think about too is when we meet on the last Tuesday of March next month, even if the group does decide that they want to switch to Thursday mornings, first Thursday, we wouldn't necessarily have to meet the following week. We could go ahead and just make it the first Thursday of May, so that we weren't having two meetings back to back, which could be quite a lot. That's it.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Michaela, this is Michelle speaking. Michaela must have been in my head, because that was exactly what I was going to ask if we could do.
Yep, the answer is yes. Okay. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and move forward with scheduling the March meeting, and then also just look to my communications so that we can get this all settled for April and beyond. But right now I'll just do March. Does that sound good? Okay. Does anybody right now want to respond to Michelle's request to consideration on July's meeting? Okay. It sounds like we're all set with scheduling then. Speak now or just hang on to your seat for a bit as we take a break.
I love that. Instead of speak now or forever hold your peace, it's speak now or speak later.
Well, yeah, forever is a long time, and I don't believe in it. So great. Okay, so at this time we'll take a 5-minute break. It is 1:51, which means that a 1:56 return is when we'll get back to the next item.
Or 1:57.
Yes, it just turned. Yeah, okay. Let's do 1:57. Great. Thank you, everyone. See you then. Hello, everyone. This is Corey talking. It is 1:57 p.m. So I'll ask that everybody, as you can, make your way back on into the meeting.
I did find my material. If there's a good space, it might be a 3-minute bit. If there's a good space, no pressure, no rush, just ideas. This is Brian, pass.
Corey, I think you should consider a new standing agenda item. So stand-up time with Brian.
Honestly, I would love to add that into my agenda. I think we could slap that in either at the beginning or the end. I think, honestly, Brian, I think you might have time to do that today.
Shizzle.
That can be his public comment.
Great. Okay, well, if nobody minds, I think I'm going to dive right in to the next agenda item, keeping in mind that we do have stand-up to look forward to if we kind of get things moving quick enough. So now that we have gone through our break and had our discussions on the nitty-gritty of council meeting and work and propriety, we are now going to move to our discussion on diversity and council identity along with recruitment. So let me give everyone a little bit of a primer. My friend Aaron Conley over at OSCI, who helps us with all things EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion, he is helping me with my recruitment plan and making sure that it is as diverse and equitable as possible so that as we reach out and invite people to come and join our council, as well as just join our meetings in general, that we're reaching all audiences and giving equal opportunity to all different communities and residents of Denver to make sure that this council is diverse. Now, I've already talked to some of you about this, but diversity means a lot of different things depending on who you talk to and who you ask and the goals of the groups that you're talking to. And Aaron gave me the great suggestion of kind of modeling and mimicking what the Denver Botanic Gardens did and just having a straight up discussion with everybody involved in the board, or in this case, our council, as to what diversity means, and to get on paper, not necessarily formalized in any kind of formal document, but get on paper a definition that we can have for ourselves that we can go back to so that as we invite people to talk, as we invite public to attend and council members to join, we know what this council represents, what it is trying to do, and how diversity needs to be included in that from the ground up, as opposed to retroactively or reactively. And so what I want people to consider as we ask this question and talk about this, I want this kind of be a free-flow conversation that we can have that will then come and turn into something perhaps more formal a little bit. But as we go and talk, thank you for explaining my acronyms. As we go and speak on this, we consider what diversity is. Now, I've sent out the survey for demographics between our current council members, and this is to get at diversity in that way, in terms of age, race and ethnicity, socioeconomic status, political affiliation, all that kind of stuff. And so looking at the diversity that we have and we represent there, I've also looked at the districts that are represented within our council. But I'd like for people to also consider the community that we serve, people with IDD, and what diversity means in terms of supports that are provided for them, and you know, the types of services that might be wanted and desired by our community, and all that good stuff. And then as we go, also just think about what the advisory council is in terms of its identity, what we do, and how we want to give a voice to the community, but also we work with a special revenue fund, taxpayer dollars, things like that. And how does diversity work with those definitions to build this identity of this group of people and their goals that they have here today? So I'm going to open the floor. What I would ask though is that this is meant to be a discussion. I want to be a free-flowing discussion, but to kind of keep that decorum, let's go back to those rules of, raise your hand and then unmute to speak. And let people know who you are as you're speaking, and then we can have back and forth. We can respond to each other, but let's do it like a little orderly so that we're not all talking at once over each other. Go ahead, Brian.
Brian B., thank you. It's important discussion, and I would like to see in writing what you said. What you said is almost a worksheet. What you said orally just now about these different strata. And I realize you want to talk about and hear from more of us about the different levels and ways of making this diverse. With the conversation I want to have, which we don't need to have now, Corey, or all IDEAS Council, is who is going to do what about that. I feel like there should be a membership committee. Maybe there already is a membership committee and I'm ignorant of that. But if there's really not somebody empowered to do something about it, then we may not need to talk about it extensively. Pass.
Everyone, this is Corey speaking again. In response to Brian, I'm going to share my screen in a second here. I'm just typing up in a Word document some questions that I think will help. I won't type everything that I said, but I think these questions maybe will get to what your point was there, Brian, of getting our thoughts together and understanding what we're talking about right now. Okay, here we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes, your blank page can be seen. Can you eliminate the gray sides and basically doubling the size of it? There you go. Thank you.
Is it still blank?
It's not blank. It's
Okay.
I refer to it as blank, but it's got 3 lines. Yeah.
Great. What I'll do is I'll keep this up. And as we chat, I'll take notes to try to best illustrate what people have said and expressed. And then we'll go from there. So let's consider this. Well, we can consider these questions in any order that you'd like, but these are the ones I'd like to hear responses and thoughts on.
So this is Brian, and just to read these out, for the IDEAS Advisory Council, what does diversity mean? What is the purpose and identity of our IDEAS Advisory Council? What can we do to promote diversity in a way that serves the council's goals? Pass. Well, this is Brian. I'd like to jump in. I've been talking for a bit and I'm willing to acquiesce if somebody else would like to come forward with their voice. Corey honed in on something important, I feel. Yeah, Stephanie, please go ahead.
Brian, I would love to hear what you have to say, and I'm gonna have to jump off in about 10 minutes or so. So I figured I would share while I have a moment. I think this conversation is super important. And I think diversity is it- I was actually talking to Corey about this a while ago, and I think diversity is not just race, but I also think it's education level. I think it's professional um, uh, credentials, if you will. I think it's having everyone from being a professional parent and care provider to someone who is maybe an OT. I think that it's also critical that we have, like you always say, nothing about me without me. I think it's, and Brian, I have to tell you, that needs to be a bumper sticker, man. Like, absolutely. Um, I think we need to have representation from, all the entire gamut of the spectrum. The autism spectrum, but I also think it's critical that we have those who are less ambulatory, maybe even spina bifida or, CP. And I really think it's critical that we have even Down syndrome represented. I think that we're doing a disservice when we look at IDD without having those voices seen and heard. And the final thing I'm gonna say is I hate to say this, but I just had this conversation last night around my dinner table about how love on the spectrum is taking off, and everyone knows Abby and everyone knows David and people are following them, and they have now Down syndrome love, whatever the spin-off of that. And I think that there has to be some element of like um people who are willing to bring the community together, and people who are less, I guess the word I'm trying to say is extroverted versus introverted. Like, it can't just be all people who hide behind the screen all day or during these meetings and don't do anything else. We have to have diversity of people who are willing to like go out and pioneer and spearhead initiatives out there. So diversity in terms of level of interest and yeah, engagement. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Stephanie's getting all the plaudits and praise and thumbs up and sparkle hands and all the. Corey, can you address what I asked about, like who's empowered to do what with this information? I mentioned a membership committee, but I made that word up. I haven't heard that in reference to this group. Pass.
Yeah, this is Corey responding to Brian. Honestly, that's kind of why I put this last question here. We have a few different ways that we can do this, and the door is honestly wide open. If we kind of come away from this conversation today saying that we have great needs to promote diversity and inclusion for our council, we can then also talk about what we want to do for that. And that can be an ongoing conversation. Nothing needs to be settled today. I only set a half hour to talk about this. That's the point of getting this conversation kind of on paper is, well, now we have this ammunition, this definition of diversity that we can then use to decide actions. And so to be a little bit more direct to you, Brian, with that, we can do anything. And so if that means putting in a little subcommittee, I think we would want to work with Jordan Humphreys to make sure that such a thing could could be good, but we could do that. We could very much explore it and structure it out, and then that committee could perhaps go and promote diversity and inclusion initiatives to then make sure that our council is following this definition that we're talking about today. Great, there's no barrier to creating subcoms to address specific IAC goals and tasks. One of the things that I'm looking for a little bit more tangibly right now is recommendations on recruitment. And this might be things that y'all could just give to me and say, okay, Corey, we have this definition of diversity. Get out there and fulfill it. Get out there and go to the right groups, the right people that align with this definition to make sure that our recruitment process and our recruitment drive is hitting everybody that we want to be hitting, so that everybody has a chance to come and talk. And so, Stephanie's point of reaching occupational therapists or people who are more willing to be connectors and engagers, that's great for me to like go and make sure that as I check off who I've talked to and who I've put flyers out to, that I've reached those groups as well and all that. And so again, to kind of try to bring that all back, because I like to say a lot, apparently, to more succinctly directly respond to your question, Brian, is we can do whatever we'd like with this information. That can include creating subcommittees to monitor and improve our diversity. That includes defining recruitment methods that you would like either for me to implement solely, or for that committee to implement, or for us to just do as a group. It could mean, honestly, anything that maybe I'm not thinking of off the top of my head right now. It could be something fully innovative and creative, as long as it obviously follows public meeting laws and things like that. So all that to say is the door's wide open, and we can kind of do whatever we want if it results in an effective and a diverse council that, does the things that we want this council to do. I've spoken for a while there, so Beth, you can go ahead and take the floor.
This is Beth. I absolutely love what she has said about that. And it goes along with the recruiting. Because when I first looked at the council, it kind of intimidated me even to apply, because I was like, well, is my son qualified as like developmentally delayed, or do I need to go figure out like how to? I'm not saying that. So while it's very like diverse of what we all talk about, I feel like it's, I don't know, the definitions I had read at the time was very specific on like who qualified and who didn't. It almost felt like I was rocking out through the services on the diagnosis to actually getting sources all over.
Corey, I don't know about you, but I had a hard time tracking with Beth. In maybe that was the audio cutting in and out, or her train of thought. It was hard for me.
Oh, sorry. What did I cut out on? I'm sorry.
I wonder if you could restate in a succinct way, Beth. That may help me.
Basically, the point of what she was saying, when I read through to get onto the committee, the definition, I was like, well, living with my son, like, it's all of this, but documented and official wise, like, does he qualify for me to even be on the council in the first place? And I felt like dealing with Rocky Mountain Human Services again, of it having to be so documented and so specific on stuff, when really any kind of ailments that people have, such a variety of what behaviors or what's going to come out of it. I feel like it's so narrowed on what qualifies to be serviced. Does that make more sense?
Heard, yes.
Okay.
I could
All right,
add,
great.
I could add more wind to that sail. Thank you, Beth.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Just to give voice to some other inputs. Jordan, this council's legal counsel. I think I tripped on a word there, but said there's no barrier to creating subcommittees. Other than if more than 2 people meet for official business, it needs to be a public meeting. We might want to update the bylaws in addressing the creation of subcommittees and how members are appointed to them and how they are directed to do whatever it is that they are to do and how they can meet. Again, open meetings are required. Pass.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
Lindsay, yeah.
How would that differentiate from when we were talking about work groups? It seemed like there was a firm no when that came up.
This is Corey talking in response to that. So last time this came up, and my memory is a little bit fuzzy right now. I didn't come to this meeting with the materials to go back on that, but last time that this came up, we did decide not to move forward with the working groups that we were considering at the time. Part of the reason, as I recall, for that being that we didn't feel it was quite necessary for the topic at hand, in that we would be kind of asking council members to meet a little bit more frequently, have extra work that didn't seem to provide the biggest lift, you know. And so we never want to just ask anybody to do more without good reason, you know. So there was a little bit of that last time. But as I recall, too, you know, we want to be, if we do have a subcommittee, as Jordan has mentioned, it you know, we have to make sure that we're following the open meeting requirement laws, and that's so that going in hand with what I just said too is like, you know, we had these topics that we were considering maybe having like a subcommittee for, but then also wanted to be very careful of. We didn't want to just put something out there that A, would require more work, but B, also would require that we are exceedingly more careful about being transparent and all that for something that didn't like provide something that we couldn't just do in this meeting currently. But that doesn't mean, as I understand, and anybody else can check me on this and discuss this, but it doesn't mean that we, you know, can't do them if we feel that is essential and goes in line with promoting an effective recruitment strategy, an effective council, all that kind of stuff. We can still explore it. I would say it still needs exploring. And so as we talk about it, I don't know that we can come away today and just have this formed and working tomorrow. But yes, go ahead, Michaela.
This is Michaela speaking. I'm wondering, Corey and everyone else too, there's been so many great ideas and thoughts offered already. Perhaps we can, you know, I know there's other advisory council members that haven't had an opportunity to share, that may have some ideas. If we could kind of hear more about what folks think of when they think diversity and what types of diversity are important for this council. And then at the end of that conversation, you know, as Corey mentioned, do some revisiting to see if we want to have further discussion on that, either as part of a larger group or part of a subcommittee, but to really take this time and to use it intentionally to make sure that we're covering those questions that Corey wrote up on the board, if that sounds okay.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Brian.
that's all for me.
Before I go, Corey, would you like to bring in Jordan's voice, or would you like me to do that from the chat?
Yeah, you mean just to vocalize it in case anybody's
Mhm.
not reading chat? Yeah, sure.
Jordan, again.
I'm happy to read what I've read. I just
Please,
try
Jordan.
not to interrupt you guys in your stream of consciousness. All I was saying was echoing what Corey was saying is it takes a lot of extra work. So you need to be ready and willing to volunteer before you volunteer to be on a subcommittee or a work group. It's a lot of extra work and responsibility, and it needs to be voluntary. The other thing is that staff is going to have to support that work group or subcommittee as well. So that's extra work on their part, which isn't a reason not to do it. It's just part of the reality of being a participant in this stuff. And the last thing I said is one option to avoid the public meeting or open meetings issue is if you have only two members meeting to talk about whatever they're working on and not add a third, but still have one agency staff member to support that work. I think that that's fine. It's when you add that third member of the IDD council, not staff, that I think it triggers the Denver open meetings requirements. So again, I'm sorry if you need me to speak instead of just typing. I just like to put it in the chat so it's documented and folks can kind of read it as they need to, because I'm not being asked these questions. I'm just throwing it out there.
Thank you, Jordan. This is Brian B. I would like to iterate and elevate something that Corey mentioned at the outset of this. Supports. Let me say that again. Supports. What supports do you need? You being the people in the community dealing with IDD, their family member, the individual themselves, their direct service providers. What supports are they accessing and what supports do they need? I think diversifying the strata of the different kind of supports that people are accessing is key to diversifying the membership here. Is that me originating that, or am I just amplifying something you already said, Corey?
Sorry, when I'm screen sharing, I always lose my mute button. This is Corey responding to Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at the risk of making myself more confusing for y'all, I think overall, I mean, diversity can kind of mean anything that we come to terms with here. And so when I say supports in that context, yeah, I basically mean what supports are people accessing and what do they need. And I think that is an important thing to consider. And I think you actually are probably processing it better than I expressed it, Brian. But it is, I think, something that is pertinent to this conversation of, Stephanie's point too of, well, okay, if people are going to occupational therapists, which was her example, having occupational therapists here could be a good marker of diversity. However, people might not only need occupational therapists, and so we maybe can't leave our definition of diversity just there because the community needs more, and therefore we want to make sure that there is representation for those professionals, those supports, those services that maybe aren't being accessed quite yet, but are a need or a consideration, things like that. Again, sorry if I'm muddling the waters. I'm doing my best to be clear. But yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Corey. Brian B. and some people need access to supports related to transportation. Some need them in relation to AAC, or alternative and augmentative communication. Some need it in relation to medication. Some need it in relation to vocation. Those different strata of types of professional service supports, I think, is our key for diversity here. In addition to the other things that we think of with socioeconomic and all the other the rest of the world is thinking about those things with diversity, but in IDEAS Council, what kind of IDD related supports are you accessing? I want to add something that's going to be outside of the box, but that's what I do. And that is, I think what we're talking about here in terms of diversifying membership needs to overlap. As Jordan talked about, you're talking about capacity stuff. So are you 2 people? Are you 3 people? Are you more, staff and then volunteer members? Well, paying people is something I've been saying for 2 years. We need to pay people to be here, and they need to be end users. It has taken 2 years, and we're still unfolding that. And I said, as hard as that is, supporting them to stay meaningfully engaged will take more work. And I feel like not knowing what else to call it right now, a membership committee that helps recruit people in could also be a part of supporting them to stay and to meaningfully engage. And that's our moneymaker. That's our longevity for the IDEAS Council. Doesn't have to be conflated with the diversity conversation, but I feel like it is a nice dovetail. Pass. Thank you, Michaela, for the timing reminder. We have less than 1 minute.
Okay, this is Corey speaking. Sorry to kind of just jump in, but we do, I think at this time, since nobody was talking quite yet, I'd like to check in on public comment and see if anybody from the public would like to make a comment. With that being said, I want to just make one quick reminder as to the structure of public comment. So every meeting, we have a 20-minute period where the public is allowed to come and to speak for up to 3 minutes. Commenters, members of the public can also submit a written comment if they would like. I have checked, and today we do not have any written comments, but if there are, I will read them for everybody to hear, and they will be memorialized in our minutes. Then, yeah, and so we invite the public to come and speak. We invite them to come and speak uninterrupted for 3 minutes. And so this means that as somebody chooses to speak, we will not respond. We will not, we will not respond nor interrupt or in any kind of way disrupt that member of the public's ability and wish to communicate to us. And members of the public can say whatever they want. So they can bring any topic to us. It does not need to be pertinent to our agenda items. They can be fully new, fully separate. We like to hear them, and it is a good chance for the public to come and to speak without fear of any kind of response or anything from us, and just give us that information, give us that knowledge that they want to share with us, and all that. And so at this time, I want to open up the floor for that. Are there any guests that are on the call today that would like to make a public comment? I see a hand. Aaron, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I am Erin Steffen. I have been kind of following along in the backgrounds on these meetings, so I felt like maybe it was time to introduce myself. I've connected with a few of you offline. I work for Colorado Poverty Law Project, and we help with tenant landlord issues, mostly tenants who are going through evictions. I am not an attorney. However, I work with a lot of attorneys who help tenants with any matter that they may have. Namely, I think as it relates to this conversation is helping people, individuals file for reasonable accommodations. But we have a whole gamut of things that we help specifically tenants with. My role is I'm a housing navigator, so I've already connected with Bayad's housing navigation program for possible resources and referrals. And I guess I didn't know I was going to go first. So my ideas are a little unformed at the moment, or my thoughts, but we're kind of trying to gather resources across the state for individuals with IDD, and am wondering if this already exists. And it can be anything. I know just in the previous conversation talking about maybe like different buckets of benefits, whether that's SSI, SSDI, housing related resources. It could be accessing different types of services. So I first wanted to kind of, I guess, see if that existed. And then I guess I wanted to see if there, how I can get more involved, whether that be referrals for people that you're working with that might have tenant landlord issues, or if there is such thing as like a housing work group, I'd be more than happy to step in and get more involved. And then I also, yes, I will share my email. I also did want to share, and I have got a lot of tabs up, but I was just on a stakeholder meeting for a new bill for Medicaid coverage, housing and nutrition services. That's HB 241322. So Colorado Poverty Law Project also does a lot of housing tenant legislation to stronger protect tenants. So this is something that's a little out of our wheelhouse. However, I figured there might be some interest from people on this call. So I'm happy to put you in touch if you want to read through this and see if this would be something that would be helpful for either your organization or you personally. And they are also looking for some like testimony and organizations that would be in support to sign on to be in support of this bill. And the contact organizer for that is Cody Blesley. That's at the top of the second Google form that I just posted. So again, it's just kind of regarding Medicaid coverage, housing and nutrition services. I believe they talked a lot about freeing up or getting more funding for like DD waivers, different things like that for more supportive services for possibly people on this call or maybe people you work with. So that was a little long-winded, but I just wanted to introduce myself, and I will definitely put my information in the chat, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you all.
Thank you, Erin. Do you have any other members of the public here interested in making public comment?
Okay. This is Corey jumping in. If there is no, there are no more interested speakers for public comment, then I would invite a motion to move out of public comment and perhaps return to the discussion on diversity, if we may.
I'll make a motion to move from public comment back to the prior conversation on diversity.
And this is Michelle. I'll second that motion.
And vote in the chat. Yes, no. And so that is 5 yes. Oh, okay, that's. I was thrown for a second, because I knew Stephanie left, but Beth came in, so we still have 5. So yes, motion passes.
Okay, this is Corey speaking. Thank you all for doing that. Thank you to the public commenters. Really appreciate that. As we return, just to give a little refresher, we're talking about diversity, what it means for our council, and how a definition of diversity for this council can inform our processes, namely recruitment as well as engagement within the council, and all that. What I would invite is for those who maybe haven't spoken yet to give their thoughts on what diversity may mean. If I have all those, I can kind of maybe coalesce those into a formal kind of definition of diversity that we can work on, we can change and alter throughout the course of our time together. But then also maybe invite people to kind of comment on the identity of the IAC, the Ideas Advisory Council, what our purpose is, and how we can best promote diversity to serve that purpose as effectively as possible.
I mean, this is Lindsay. I would echo a lot of what Stephanie has already said, which seems to be speaking to intersectionality and also looking at, sorry, I'm kind of trying to read what you wrote as well. Yes, we talked about qualifications for the council, what supports people are accessing. So, I mean, being able to capture different communities and, you know, all sorts of people within Denver, within, you know, the population of, you know, as Brian says, end users or, you know, caregivers as well. You know, and how do we actually get in touch with people? Because I feel like we've talked about what this means, you know, at other points in time. So I guess I kind of go back to like what Brian said at the beginning, which is, you know, the steps that we take with that.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Go ahead,
Ben?
Beth.
I really like that Brian had brought up the point of not necessarily incentives, but what keeps people there. I'm on the MAC as one of my various committees that I'm on. And they make it, I mean, not overly well known, but well known that they definitely are there to support the members, not just members as in like healthcare, but members as in they're on the board and are very solutions based on if there is something that's bugging us or external factors, that they are there to at least talk and have resources or discuss something. So they want to take care of us on there. And I know there's several members on there that have been on there for years and years and years. And it's almost just like a perk of being on there is that you know you're well taken care of and that there will be help if you need it, even just to talk about something, to find solutions to stuff.
Thank you, Beth.
Brian?
Corey, I have a phrase for you, so tell me when you're ready, because I know you're taking notes. Yeah?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I had to find my mute button.
That phrase is meaningful community engagement. I think that phrase can get repurposed many ways all around all of this discussion, whether it's the membership committee or the diversity committee, whether it's the definition or the reason we're here is to support effective community engagement. And there's a lot going on just to have a pulse, just to be alive in today's world. And then add in factors like IDD, and it gets complicated. And so sometimes we cannot engage these people, and that's okay. It's because they are full doing something else. When and if they are available, let's support them to be able to engage at the level they can. Pass.
This is Lindsay. I think, it'd be nice to further this discussion, have this be a continued topic, explore it beyond, and I don't mean this to disagree with the term of membership committee, and, but looking beyond that to more of like what you said, Brian, of meaningful community engagement. It doesn't have to be limited to how do we recruit for the committee, but we have maybe we've talked about this before, and it'd be nice to maybe see this as a future agenda item or something to kind of further the conversation of, do we have an informal meeting in public, or do we just have like a get together where we're in the community? I think part of it has to be getting into the community. Be in the community to try to hear voices, take some initial steps. Beth?
I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thanks, Beth.
This is Corey speaking again. I appreciate all that's been said so far. I'm only jumping in as there was a pause in the conversation. So thank you all, everybody who has shared so far. To that last point, if I may, I just wanted to make sure that this was okay to add in, Lindsay, as I kind of understand, but meaningful communication, meaningful community engagement also entails getting out into the community, hearing the voices, and taking the initial steps. So we're kind of taking our counsel to the public as opposed to always just kind of expecting the public to come to us. Is that an apt summary to what you said? I just don't want to put words in your mouth, so to speak.
Can I get an amen?
Yep.
Is what he said.
Yeah, just, sometimes, we get feedback from, these external entities on these formal things to do. Take this step with the website and this step here. And, I think at some point we do have the ability to reshape some of our meetings, or have an extra meeting, or have an extra time where it's not a meeting and we go to, some of these either contract partners or just, the different places that we've mentioned before, go to a coffee shop and just, be able to connect with people, just hear what's going on. What are some things that people are dealing with? Like, I know Brian's mentioned, what are supports people are connected to, but, what are supports that don't exist? What are supports that are needed? how do we learn about it? Because we could say, oh, well, this many people needed transportation or couldn't get it, but maybe there are things that just don't even exist, but we don't know about it because we haven't found a way to tap into it to access information. So it would be great to have that be like a topic that we could discuss a little bit further.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Lindsay. This is Brian. That is so in alignment with mill levy, because mill levy is in essence money to fill in where there is not something already there. Thank you. Pass.
Great. Heard. That's thank you. I appreciate all of that. And I do think that that is important. And I think that we can kind of include that. And so this is going to be an ongoing conversation, right? We're not going to come away today in the next 2 minutes here with all of our plans set and in motion right now. And so what I plan to do is to make sure that I include this on future agenda items as you just requested, Lindsay, and to kind of consider that and to try to work with y'all to schedule maybe some other meetings and locations that we can get to. I'd like to make those intentional too. And so I'd like to kind of make sure that we are, it'd probably be me, tracking where we go so that we're not just going to the same place over and over again, but we're actually going out and getting those community voices in such a way that promotes diversity as we're talking about today, here and now. I'm going to try to give a crack at getting a somewhat succinct definition of diversity here and now before we move on to forecasting next meeting as per our agenda. And so with what everybody has said, diversity is not solely race, but also can be educational level, professional credentials. It can encapsulate what supports are people accessing and what do they need. This may mean different supports, such as those help with transportation, help with communication, help with medication, things like that. It also definitely means end users. That was said multiple times. So people with lived experience with IDD who are accessing those supports, including diversity, to make sure that their voices are being elevated and heard. And so all of that to being said, trying to digest that into somewhat of a singular thought. Diversity for the advisory council means including all walks of life, including professional, experienced people who are giving and receiving supports. So when I say experience, I mean lived experience as well as supportive experience, people who are providing for the end users and then the end users themselves. Does that about generally encapsulate, and then this is a flexible definition. This is something that we can look back at and addend and all that. But does that encapsulate what we want to encapsulate as we move forward and recruit, as we move forward and go out to the community, as we're planning to do, as we move forward and invite people to come and speak? Or does anybody have any final thoughts that they want to make sure are elevated at this time? Okay, I'll work on typing this all up later, but I will make sure I share it to the council, especially those who aren't here today. And so again, this is an ongoing conversation. Equity, diversity, and inclusion, as well as accessibility, are never something that we can solve in a half hour. And so we will continue to work on that. We will continue to plan future events. And I honestly think that these are going to be super duper fun. This is the kind of stuff that I enjoy doing, making sure that we're promoting that inclusion and all that. And so getting out to dirt or brewability or wherever, I think will be enjoyable. And I have been meaning to do that, just so y'all know. But yes, I think that concludes that conversation for now. As always, anybody is always willing to chime in or seek me out individually. I'm still open to go and grab a coffee somewhere and to talk. So if anybody has ideas that weren't expressed today, come and get me and we'll talk about it. I'll leave it to the chairs to guide the next agenda item.
This is Lindsay. I was just wondering if we can try to capture what Jordan as put for purpose of IAC. Just kind of tack that onto the notes so you've got that for next time.
Notes are saved with the recording.
Oh, I know. I just mean
Yes.
since it's easy to grab it right now, or it's like digging through chat, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot easier to grab it right now than before I have to dig through the chat. So I appreciate that. I couldn't see the chat. So I'm going to copy and paste these now for my notes. And I will make sure that they are memorialized and encapsulated.
Can I just comment, that was effective community engagement. An attorney said, oh, it's on the recording. And a community member said, yeah, but let's do it now. And Corey's like, yeah, let me just go. That was great. Pass.
Funny. So forecasting for next meeting, potential agenda items. What agenda items would people like to see on the March meeting?
Brian? No pressure, but I would love to have Chris P bless us with some bars. He is a phenomenal poet, and I'd love to, if he would like to share. Pass.
All right, this is Chris Patton. Two. Three, two, five. Chris says, treat to talk freedom. Anything else? Where else? All right, focus. So I'm gonna say Hunter treats. Sorry, I am new to typing with Chris, so it's a slow treat to free mind. So we have treat to read freedom and treat to free mind. So
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Hunter. So we talk about having fun here, and so when Lindsay asked, what should we put on for next month's agenda, my answer, fun. Pass.
I love that. That's awesome. This is best.
This is Lindsay. Thank you, Chris. And then I guess more specifically to Ryan's point for the agenda item, I think it would be great to see us put like add some specific dates for some of the things that we talked about. Because we'll be in March, so then we'll be looking at, April and, just to get some specifics into the works for some of what we've talked about today.
Hi everyone, this is Corey. That's great, Lindsay. Thank you. I have noted that. So I will make sure that that is on the agenda. We'll have that on there. Next meeting date is scheduled for March 26th. That is the final Tuesday of that month. And so plan to come March 26th from 1 to 3 via Zoom, as we talked about earlier today. The rest of the schedule will be set with everybody's availability in mind, and we'll go from there. So yeah, March 26th, 1 to 3, Zoom. Be on the lookout for that link. I'll make sure that is posted on our website, but I'll also always put it on the agenda that is sent out to our council members as well as our stakeholders. And so I invite, if anybody would like to be a part of that email list, let me know, and I'll make sure that you're on that. So you'll see all of our invites and communications as we go throughout each month. And then if anybody would like to exchange information, I know that we had a public commenter who was giving out some info. If anybody would like to connect with me to make sure that that is all well in hand so that we're promoting community connections outside of the council, please let me know.
Looks like we've got our next meeting set and 2 minutes to spare. So with that said, I will open for a motion to adjourn.
Brian B, so motion.
I will second the motion and we can put our votes in the chat. Okay, so 3 out of 5. Yes, so we don't have vote from Beth or Michelle. I know Beth has been a little in and out, but with that, okay, so we got Beth 4 and 5. Let's say meeting adjourned at 2:59 on 27th. Thank you.